Hi, it's Annalie. Thanks for joining me today. I just watched a fantastic video by Gina K where she used wax paper and ironed it to make her cardstock designs. And I'm going to run through how she did that because I'm having so much fun with it. So I made these two using a Simon Says stamp embossing folder. This one I used a Stampin' Up! Seashells embossing folder. This one I just wrinkled up the wax paper. I'm just using regular wax paper, cut-right wax paper. I cut it to, this one's not exactly the right size, but I cut the other pieces to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And for this last one, and for a number of them, I just wrinkled it up and then undid it. Spread it out. I put it between two pieces of cardstock like this. Now remember, this one's not exactly the right size, but that would work anyway. Put it between two pieces of cardstock like this. Took it to a hot iron on my ironing board with a piece of paper underneath and a piece of thin paper on the top, just in case any wax got out. And I just ironed that. So the wrinkled one made just a fun little wrinkly pattern. And then the ones in the embossing folders made some of the others. So now what I have just done is I just ironed some more. These were all different embossing folders. I used Altenew Basic Plaid, Altenew Areca Palm, Altenew Garden Rose, and Altenew Elegant Bows. And I ran them each through the die cutting machine in the embossing folder. Just the wax paper goes in the embossing folder, not the cardstock. And then when I have just ironed these, so my wax paper is in the middle. So now I know there's wax on this side of the paper and there's wax on this side of the cardstock. And here is my wax paper, which is still kind of pretty. I'm gonna keep this and use it. Let's see if I have a paper cardstock here. I can keep this and use it as vellum with these the roses embossed into it. So I'm gonna set that aside. But now what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna grab an ink pad and my sticky mat. And then I cannot see or feel the wax, but I do know that these are the sides that the wax was touching. So you want to try to remember which side was facing the wax. If when you're inking, nothing shows up, then you probably just have it on the other side and you just flip your cardstock over and try inking on the other side. This is basically a resist technique. I think I'll just do the one. And I'm just gonna ink right over it. Maybe I'll have to grab a darker ink. Nope, here it comes. And I'm just playing with different embossing folders to see which ones I like the best. But they give a really pretty background. I might go over this with just a darker ink. I think it'll show up a little bit better. I'll use Razzleberry. I'm gonna go right over that pink diamond. And then maybe it'll show up a little bit better. And then I'm just going to remove the ink that was on the wax, just so it doesn't get all over my fingers. And there I have the wax design. Now this was one side of the wax. The other side will be slightly different. We'll do that one here. I'm seeing mostly leaves, not as many roses, but it still makes a pretty cool background. And then just wipe that ink off. Now let's try a different one. See if, I don't know if you can see any differences here, but there's a slight difference. A little bit more white shows up on this one. Anyway, let's try this one. I don't even know which folder this is, so this one is the bows. So you can see that I just embossed those bows. I had embossed some paste in there, which is now coming out on here, but that's all that is. I think I will try a Ride the Wave blue for one. So I have to admit, I don't use this embossing folder very often. I don't love bows that much. But on here it gives a very delicate look. I actually really like this one. I think a nice, pretty, gentle background. I like that one. And then, should we do a pink one in case I need a baby card? I'll do another. I'll do Pinkalicious on this one. So there is a slight difference depending on which side of the wax paper you use. Just a slight bit of a difference. So there's the pink one and the blue one. And they're just fun, and they're completely smooth. You can't feel any raised elements at all. They feel just like cardstock. So that's that. The next one, this one I think is going to be fun. The next one is the, what's it called? Basic Plaid. So for that one, I think I'll do an ombre look. I'm going to start with blueberry. I'm going to start with blueberry near the top. Sorry if my camera's jiggling. Oh, this is a beautiful background. When you just want to add some design, but no dimension, this is a really great way to do it. I love this. I'm super, super, super happy that she came up with this. Blue Horizon. Yeah, I'll try it. To blend these lines together. that navy out, but I think that's going to be too much of a contrast, so I'm going to stick with Ride the Wave along the bottom. So that makes a pretty design. I love that. Super pretty. All right, and then this one, what colors shall we use? I'm gonna go with Tanzanite on this one. I have some on my finger. So this is really great for a card that's going in the mail because there's absolutely no dimension to it, but it gives a beautiful, beautiful background. It's almost like a stenciled background, but without having to use a stencil. Try to keep that in place. But look how beautiful that is. So pretty. And I am keeping all the wax papers because they will make a really pretty piece of vellum. All right, for this one, green opal. Love my green opal. This is a great background because again, with this one, with the folder, I don't know, I am not a fan of 3D folders. I have a bunch of them, but I don't use them very often because I think it gives too much dimension for the back of a card. So this, to me, is a perfect alternative. This one, I don't know if you can really see it that well, but it's really subtle and very pretty. And then I'm going to use different greens on this one just to see if I can bring out more of the pattern. So pretty. And I've been forgetting to wipe these off, haven't I? So we'll just remove the ink that's left on the wax. I'll do it also on this one. Do it also on this one. There we go. Some really pretty. This is the rose one. I don't really see the roses. I see more of the leaves. And then the pink bows, the green bow, green. I'm picking up the green brush, blue bow. And then these two backgrounds. These are lovely. I love these. Just super subtle. You can use those for background of anything. And then I do also really like these leaves. They're super fun. And then you can use those for backgrounds. You can use them for cutting out sentiments, pretty much anything. It's just a fun little project. Okay, so I'm going to show you some of my finished cards that I made. This one I didn't actually show you how I did it, but I used the crinkle wax paper and then a stencil. And I just ink blended over the stencil and it gave me this beautiful, beautiful look, what's the word I'm thinking? This is really pretty. And then I added some gold relief paste along too, just to give it a little bit of something else. This one, this was the green, the multiple shades of green leaf background that I did, but I also used a sheet of just the wrinkled wax paper that I had done previously, and I cut out the flower and the sentiment using that. And I just think that that makes a really pretty flower, and I kind of like the sentiment with it as well. This one, I used the checkered background. Again, I forget the name of it, but this is one that I did the ombre color, and it's just a pretty background. And then I used the ground dahlias and ink blended those, added a couple butterflies, and that one is done. This one, I again used a piece of crinkled wax paper and I stenciled over the top using multiple different colors. I added a gem in the middle and a sentiment. And this is another one where I stenciled using a stencil and just added the ink on top. And this one was the other one of these daisies, the dotted daisies. And I used this background, and then I added a daisy on there, and that's it. So those are a few different ways that you can use these really cool inked backgrounds. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'd love it if you give me a thumbs up, a like, subscribe. It would help me out a lot. So I appreciate you taking the time, and I hope to see you again soon.